Slavery is ended. The business world is the wild, wild west. And women need an escort just to go across the street. It's 1880s America, better yet known as the Gilded Age. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to go get you something to eat, get your favorite snack, or whatever the case may be. And then we're going to travel back in time and review the hit HBO Max show. Okay, y'all got 30 seconds. Get what you need to get. Baby, I'm on my George Russell. If you can't tell by the top hat and the little jacket, baby, I'm on my George Russell today. Okay, I am a railroad tycoon. Call me Mr. Monopoly. Okay, because I owns everything. And y'all, when I tell you, for those of you who don't know, I am a big history buff. So I will watch this show even if I wasn't reviewing it for you guys. I will watch this show anyway because I love period pieces. I don't want to say I wasn't a big Downtown Abbey fan. I just didn't get into it. Maybe I would try that one next to fill in the void while we wait on the newest season of HBO Max, whatever they calling themselves these days. They may change their name again by the time season 4 rolls around. But HBO Max hit period drama, The Gilded Age. Listen again, like I said, I'm a big history buff. I love the show. I really do, and I really want you guys to just follow back. And I feel like it'd be good for us to go back to season 1, episode 1, because it's been some time. It's been some time since we got introduced to these characters, and I think going back, I think for me would just make it. I think it'll make the experience more more real and more enjoyable. So, baby, get your top hat. Okay, get yourself a good ink pen and some tea. And some tea as we travel back in time to the Gilded Age. All right, so episode 1, y'all, it's a lot going on in episode 1. Okay, first of all, the runtime of episode 1 is almost an hour and a half. Episode 1 is a movie. Okay, let me just put it out. Episode 1 is a movie. If seriously, just by the runtime alone. But I like how they set it up. Like they didn't rush it. They did not rush the pilot episode of the Gilded Age. You know, sometimes in other shows, the pilot, I'm not gonna say it's slow, but that's all it is just backstory. And then maybe in the second episode, because maybe between when they filmed the pilot and when the show got picked up, there was some time lapses and some things had to be changed. The perfect example of that, before we jump into my review, is the Golden Girls. Okay, think back to the pilot episode of the Golden Girls. Okay, they had the gay cook. The rooms were in totally different spots than what they were in and throughout the rest of the series. Blanche was going out to the lanai, but in the first episode, that's her room. You know what I'm saying? It was not saying it wasn't good. The pilot episode is actually one of my favorite episodes. I really like the pilot episode. But again, they had from episode 1 to episode 2, a character disappears and it was never talked about again. Never talked about again. Here, and I'm gonna try my best not to get ahead because I'm caught up yet. So if you watching this review and you have not seen the Gilded Age, I'm gonna do my best not to go past the episode and give spoilers. All right. For those of you who have seen the Gilded Age up until it's season 3, you would know that the Gilded Age does a good job just connecting everything from the pilot episode. So without further ado, let's jump into the pilot episode. Ooh, hold on real quick, y'all. Hold on real quick, because you know what? I'm running low on the water. Okay. I'm up here telling y'all to get y'all snacks and all of that. And I ain't even got mine. So we're gonna be right back. We're gonna be right back. And we back in this thing. What's up? Okay. So let's dive into episode 1 of season 1, The Gilded Age. So the scene opens up and it gives us the time period that we're in. It's 1887 New York. Okay. And we see these carriages bringing in sculptures and all other type of art pieces to this huge estate, right? To this huge estate that's being built. We don't know who it's being built for at this time, but it is a huge estate and it's so different than all the other townhomes or brownstones that you see on the street. And we find out to know that that street is 61st Street, and it's on the corner of 61st and 5th Street, or 5th Avenue, I should say. 5th Avenue. And then in that first scene, we also get introduced to Agnes. Now we don't know her name, but that's who she is. We see Agnes for the first time, and Ada. Okay, baby, they looking outside the window like nosy neighbors. Okay, I love one thing I love about this show is that even though it is a period piece, I love how the simple things that we still do today they put into the show, right? Like, let's just be real. If we see a big old moving truck, what I'm saying, across the street from our home, or we see somebody moving in the apartment complex, what we gonna do? We gonna go to the window and look. That's what we gonna do. And then we gonna do exactly what Ada and Agnes did. And when we make that eye contact with the new neighbor, baby, we gonna run and hide like we didn't even do anything. Now, when now when I moved here, when I moved into my house, baby, to this house here, baby, the neighbors, baby, beat me to the door. Okay, hello, how are you? But needless to say, I really do like how they put that little element in there. All right. And we don't know who this mysterious family is, but we do know that they are wealthy, extremely wealthy. And if you can't, again, they have an art imported. It looks like from Europe. Honestly, it just looks like European art just being imported from France or Rome or whatever the case may be. And one thing I was like one little side note I like to put out here, and that is, baby, I would like to know. We think that, you know, 20,000 or 10,000 or even an 8,000 square foot house is huge today. And it is. I mean, that's a big house. That is a rather large home. These people were living in 20, 30,000 square foot homes, and that's their main house. And then they have a country, get this, they have a country cottage that's maybe another 30,000 or 40,000 square feet. And that's the country cottage. I'm telling you, it was the wild, wild west in business. This is like the second industrial revolution. Okay. Think about the titans of industry that we hear about, or that are just being alluded to today. So think about your JP Morgan from JP Morgan Chase, right? Think about Cornelius Vanderbilt. Think about Rockefeller, JD Rockefeller. Did you fill your car up with Exxon? Okay, thank JD Rockefeller for that. Well, technically thank the US government for that, but that's another story for another day. Did you eat with some silverware today? I'm pretty sure that fork that you ate with was stainless steel. So think of Andrew Carnegie. Okay, this is their era, and everything is new, and everything is just like wow, right? For us, it was like the internet had just been founded, right? It was just like the internet, the railroad system. Excuse me, and I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but the railroad system was just like the internet for us. It's new, everybody's trying to get in, and just like the internet bust that happened in the early 2000s, that also happens during this era as well. But again, I'm not gonna get ahead of myself. I'm gonna stick right to episode 1 here. So then we go and we get back to this other state or other area. We don't know the state just yet. And we see this young woman, and it looks like she's talking to a lawyer or an accountant. And basically, that it would be Marion. And again, probably in another video, I'll probably do like a little short video, and I have like the pictures of the actors and their characters and who they're playing and so on and so forth. I really just want to get this review out here and again just start reliving this with y'all, because it really is a great show. So we get introduced to Marion, who we later find out is Agnes and Ada's niece. And she's talking to, like I said, she's talking to either an accountant or a lawyer. And we find out that her father had passed. And in that, she's talking about, hey, well, my father had these stocks in these railroad companies. And again, remember how I'm trying to parallel what happened back in this time to the internet bust that happened in the 90s, early 2000s, right? So, like I said, railroad systems were very new. People were going out there trying to make a railroad company, trying to make a buck. And just like in the internet, these new internet companies, they went bust. They went bust. And when that happens, I mean, you lose your money. And if you invested everything, you lost everything. And it seems like that's what happened with Marion's father. And then she's like, well, what about the house? And then the accountant or the estate planner was like, baby, that house is rented, baby. I don't know the lies. I don't know who read your palm and told you lies, baby. But baby, smoke and mirrors, okay? Smoke and mirrors was your life. You don't own the home that you stay in, and quite frankly, you're broke. That was essentially what the estate planner or the whatever you want to call them basically told her. And he's like, I even forego my fees. And let me just tell y'all something. We still again, I just love the parallels between back then and today. Because I mean, I can either hear myself saying that, I'm an accountant by trade. Um, or I can hear other accountants or lawyers saying that, baby, I didn't even pay me something. I didn't even give me anything, okay? Because baby, you ain't got that much to give. Okay. And then Mary was like, no, no, take your fee, take your fee. And the man's like, look, you got $30. You got $30 to your name. And in today's money, y'all, that's $1,000. Okay. That's $1,000. And now basically she cannot afford rent because she's a woman and women don't hold positions or titles or anything like that besides homemaker during this time. Or they work for charity events. This is the time where as the patriarchy was alive and well, okay, more so than what it is today. And so excuse me, now Marion has to literally pick up and move. And now she has to go and live with her aunts. And, we get introduced to some family strife. Now, we don't, at this time, we don't know why there's strife between Marion's father and Agnes and Ada. But we know that there's some strife there because Marion alludes to, like, hey, you know, I haven't talked to these people being her aunts in years, like we're estranged and all this other stuff. And baby, the accountant is like, look, you're gonna have to stay with somebody, okay? You're gonna have to stay with somebody. You only got $30. And guess what? I paid up your rent for the month, okay? Out of your daddy's estate, the little money that he had, I paid up the rent for the month. Okay, so you got to the end of the month to figure out what you want to do. So don't. I'm sorry. And so she goes home and she writes a letter, or she replies back to a letter to Ada. We don't know that. Well, yeah, not in this scene. We don't. And she basically tells Aunt Ada that, hey, can I come stay with you, baby? If Fresh Prince was a white woman, baby, Mary would be it. Okay, Mary, I'm sending you to stay with your uncle and auntie. Okay, but she writes that letter and basically has to sell all the furniture in the home and pack up and move, right? And so it goes back to, you know Agnes reading Marion's letter. And baby, I'm gonna use Agnes. I'm gonna give Agnes and Mrs. Astor, who we will meet at the very end of this episode, a nickname, and I may use them interchangeably. But excuse me. But yeah, Agnes is Iron Ass. Okay, Agnes is Iron Ass. I nicknamed her that probably the first, maybe the second episode I watched in the series. I said, "Oh, she old Iron Ass." Okay, because it don't make any sense for somebody to be that dang rude. Okay, but I like Agnes though. I really do. Her little quips are funny to me. They really are. But at the same time though, why you gotta be so mean? Why you gotta be so mean? Okay. So she's telling Ada, because Ada's like, we gotta, she's saying that she's going to come and stay with us. And Agnes like, Baby, look, I gotta feed your mouth. I gotta feed my son's mouth. I gotta pay this staff. Now you trying to tell me I need another mouth to feed? Child, please. And baby, that sounds like a black woman to me, okay? That reminded me of What's Love Got to Do with It. That scene when Ike Turner kids by his first wife came and lived with Tina, and he told his ex-wife, "What am I gonna do with two more kids? Huh? What am I gonna do with two more kids?" Baby, that is what Agnes was saying. What I'm gonna do with another mouth to feed? Okay, what am I gonna do? And then we get introduced to Bertha, baby. Bertha steps out of the carriage. The house is built. Okay, and we see Bertha Russell, played by Miss Carrie Coon. Okay, and for those of you who don't know who Carrie Coon is, go watch the latest season of White Lotus, and you'll see Miss Carrie Coon. But I promise you, though, baby, if you see the White Lotus, then you realize that that's Bertha, baby, you will look at that woman just a little bit differently. I'm not saying in a bad way. I'm just like, oh my God. Just go away. If you ain't seen White Lotus, go watch White Lotus. Okay. And then come back and see how she acted. And you be like, girl, is that you? The versatility of it all. Go ahead on, Miss Carrie Coon. Okay, go ahead on. But in this scene where Bertha steps out of the carriage and she's expecting the home and all of this, and then Agnes is basically, talking her ish. It introduces the main theme in the overall show, and that's old money versus new money. Okay. And so, although Rockefeller and Vanderbilt and Carnegie and Jay Gould, like, and JP Morgan, well, JP Morgan may be old, but JP Morgan may be old money. JP Morgan may be old money. I'm gonna take him out. I'm gonna take him out. But them three that I named earlier, Vanderbilt, Rockefeller, Carnegie, and Gould, Gould, those four would be considered nouveau riche or new money, right? And basically, the distinction between if you're old money or new money is did your family have money and means and power and status um, before the American Revolution? Because if they came over with money, power, and class, okay, then yeah, baby, you you are considered owed money. Okay. And again, that's no different than how it is today, right? It is no different than how it is today. You go to any society in a big town or even a small town. I mean, I come from a small town, and you can very tell that who was old money and who was new money. Um, you can I mean, the town that I come from, honestly, you can tell if baby you lived on the right side of the tracks, because I'm sitting here telling you, like, you cross the tracks and like the town just looked totally different, you know. I had family who stayed on the quote unquote other side of the tracks, or while me and my family lived on the white side of the tracks, until the Great Recession happened, and that's another story for another day. But um, it's very, again, it's just themes that still happen throughout today. And I think that's why I really like it, because although it's a period drama, it's the things that these characters are going through on this show still live out in today's society. Moving right along, we get introduced to Miss Russell staff. All right. And so at this point, we kind of see who's going to represent who, right? Y'all, this hat's getting on my nerve. I don't know how George, baby, I don't know how George did all this, okay? I really truly don't. But we basically see who's going to be representing who, right? Agnes and Ada and Marion, they are old New York. They are old money. And the Russell family is new money, okay? Bertha, who's married to George Russell, is a George is a big railroad tycoon. Okay, and again, another thing what I like about this show is that they weave in history and fiction really really well, right? So although the Russell family is fiction, they are loosely or more so based on people in real life. So Bertha Russell is based on one of Cornelius Vanderbilt's son's wife, and George Russell is actually not based on Cornelius' son's Cornelius' son, because if you don't know, Cornelius Vanderbilt was, they called him the Commodore. His nickname was the Commodore, and the reason why is because he was over the railroads, right? That was his staple. That was his what is the word I am looking for? That was his contribution to American society, is the railroad system that we know today. But George Russell is not based on Cornelius' son. It's actually based on Jay Gould, who was another railroad tycoon. And so we go back, and now we know that Marion is in Pennsylvania. That's the state that they're in. And Marion meets Peggy Scott. Okay. And she's black, baby. Okay. She is a black lady, but not your typical black lady at that time. Okay. She is well read. Okay. She comes from good stock. And the reason why I say that is because not only is she traveling alone, right? But in this scene, she pays for Marion's ticket and ferry ticket to get to New York, because there was a tussle right before they were going aboard the train. There was a tussle between these two men, and I don't know if it was a scheme. That's what it looks. That's what it sounds like to me. Is that it was a scheme? Like, I don't think that these two men that had that little fight were really going to hurt each other or anything like that. I think it was just all a scheme to startle the women and see who they can steal from, right? And baby Peg is black, so at this time they're gonna be like, okay, this black woman ain't got anything, so let's go for the white lady, okay? And baby, I'm pretty sure they was very disappointed that the white lady didn't have anything out of him. Because you got to think, during this time, the average American family, working family, who worked in like the steel mills and basically work with their hands, was making $545 a year, right? And so Marion's dad, after paying all the debts and everything, basically had $30. So that's not even a tenth of the excuse me of the salary of a working family. Okay, it's not even a tenth. So after Marion loses her purse, you know, she's like, oh, she asked Peggy, "Hey, have you seen my purse?" And all this other stuff. She goes up to the conductor of the train, like, "Hey, look, can you at least let me on?" Baby, that conductor said, "No ticket, no ride." Okay, and this is why I say this was the wild, wild west of business, baby. Because I feel like in some capacity, in today's society, I think that given the circumstances, they would have let Marion on, right? If the conductor was actually looking around the train station and saw what happened, right? I think they would have let Marion on. But in this instance, baby, no train, no ticket, baby. Okay, no ticket, no ride. Okay, baby, Pat and Turner Flintstone to New York, wherever you got to go, but you ain't getting on this train. And so, Peg is not Peggy. Marion is in. Is just in. She's a damsel in distress, really. And then this is when the first introduction of race comes into this show, right? Because Marion tells Peggy, "Well, go ahead and board," and then Peggy's like, "Baby, well, I gotta wait. I gotta wait till all the white folks get on, and then they're gonna let us on in the bike." Okay, I gotta wait till all the white folks get on, and then they gonna put us up in the bike where they be chucking the coal in the steam engine. Okay, in the furnace where they be chucking the coal in the furnace, and then uh Mary's like, "Oh yes, yes, that's right." And I have to ask, like, Mary, were you that sheltered that you didn't know the way of the world? Like, surely this wasn't the first time you've seen a black person, and surely this ain't the first time you had an interaction where black people had to get back because you was walking down the street. Surely, but again, this is TV, y'all. Okay, this is TV, and this is how they introduced race into the storyline. And so Marion gets in the bike with all the black folk. Okay. And baby, she got her little nap. Dang, I wish I had my handkerchief. But baby, she got her little. And baby, Peggy said, "I'm sorry, it ain't first class." And you know what, Peggy? You know what, Peggy? I know you was trying to console Miss Marion. And again, given the time period, that comment would make perfect sense. But baby, in today's society, baby Marion and Peggy would have been on Spirit Airlines like this. They would have been on Spirit Airlines like this. Okay? And maybe would have got a bag of peanuts. Maybe. Maybe Peggy, you didn't have to, you beggars cannot be choosers. Okay, and then but that's what Marion says, y'all. Okay, that's what Marion says. I'm being a little facetious just to give y'all some entertainment. But that's what Marion says, right? Marion's like, "Okay, look, I understand and um I know I can't be choosy. The accommodations are fine. My aunt's got the money and all of that." And then again, let's go back to Miss Peggy. That just shows you that Peggy comes from a well-to-do family, or Peggy has some means coming. She got some money coming in from somewhere. Okay, she got some money coming in from somewhere because again, a black person at that time was they didn't have any extra to give. They barely had enough to give their family. So the fact that they had enough to Peggy had enough to give for someone else is just a testament of how well off her family is um, for that time. And I'm glad. I'm glad that this show is showing that because, babe, it helps me as a black person in this country to understand that all of us wasn't downtrodden, right? All of us, all black folks were not downtrodden. Um, they were black millionaires, and they in this time they were black well-off people during this time. Um, did they have to go through a hell of a lot? Yes. And could I be that person? No. That's why God made me born in the 90s. He knew I needed the internets and modern conveniences, baby. Okay, he knew. And I thank you, Lord. Okay, moving right along. We go to the Russell dinner. Oh, I forgot to because I made a note before we move on. Baby, so the accountant picks her up at the house and drops her off at the train station. And the accountant was like, "Can I write to you?" And baby Marion said no so quick, baby. Marion is done with men. Okay. She is done with the men's. Okay. She said her daddy lied to her. The man that was supposed to love her, who was supposed to tell her the truth, who was supposed to tell her that everything's gonna be all right, lied. Done. I'm sick of y'all men's. I'm sick of it. And baby, the accountant was like, girl, look, this ain't even what that is. Okay, this is nothing. This is business, baby. You may have some business that I may need to write to you. Okay. Ain't nobody trying to get in your knickers. Okay. Ain't nobody trying to get in your knickers. Okay. All right. Moving right along to the Russell dinner, y'all, because we got a lot to talk about in this episode, and I'm being a little verbose here. So moving right along to the Russell dinner. Baby Bertha wants to exert her wealth, and that is very evident, baby. Okay. She takes her son and her daughter throughout this grand home. I mean, and she want her wealth to show. She want the people to know that they have arrived and the spotlight is on them, honey. Okay. That is what she wants. But you know what I find funny though? Bertha is doing all of this. She done changed her house. She done changed her hairstyle. She done changed her clothes. But baby, why didn't you change your name? Okay, Bertha. Bertha. Baby, Bertha sounds wide. Bertha, Bertha sounds like she churns butter. Okay. Bertha, baby, sound like she could cook up a good meal. Okay. Bertha sound like when you need some comfort, she gonna hold you in her bosom. Come here, baby. Come here. That's what Bertha said. Bertha does not sound like a nouveau riche woman, okay? Baby, from now on, don't ever call your name is Mrs. Russell or Mrs. George Russell. Don't go out there and say my name is Bertha. Baby, put a little accent of agave on there and be Bertha. Huh? My name is Bertha. Or Bertie. Uh-huh. Or Bert. Or baby, Lady B. Lady B, baby. That come on now. Lady B. Okay, and the B stands for none of your business. Okay, anyway, moving right along, y'all. My bad. My bad. This is why, y'all. Because I got 2 pages of notes and we barely finished with the first one. But here we go. Marion arrives. Okay, she arrives, it's pouring down rain, and Peggy can't get home. So she gets out the car. She's met at the doorstep with Bannister, which is Mrs. Van Ryn's butler. And I forgot this young man's name, but and I'm so sorry, sir. But the nickname that everybody has given this young man is Clock Twink. And if you haven't watched all the show, you'll understand why that name makes sense. But it's Bannister and the Clock Man. Oh, John, that's his name, John. My bad, sir. I'm so sorry. And baby, the way Bannister looked when Peggy got out that dang taxi, oh, that was the funniest look for me because he was like, wait a minute, and I didn't know you was bringing somebody. You did not tell me you was bringing anybody, and then you shouldn't have been telling me that that person was colored, okay, or a Negro, okay, all right. Um, Baby, Agnes runs the house, and she gonna let you know. Agnes runs that house. She calls Ada a spinster in the first 5 minutes of the show. Like a spinster is a very rude name to call somebody, even though it's true, right? And that's basically somebody who's unmarried, who doesn't have any children, okay? Old maid, you know what I'm saying? Now we call them the rich auntie, okay, in today's society, because that's usually all the rich aunties, okay, the ones who ain't got any kids and is unattached. But anyway, um, one thing I like about Miss Agnes, though, Miss Iron Ass ain't white. JT, what is white? White are white people who don't like black people, okay? Those are the white people. You got white people, and then you got white people. The whites don't like the blacks. Okay, there you go. You learned something new today. Okay, and then we go back over to cross the street to the Russell household, and baby, there go Miss Jezebel Turner, baby, Miss Jezebel Turner, baby. Um, Looking on at Mr. Russell. Okay, and look, I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna take it back. Mr. Russell do look good. Okay, I ain't gonna say that's a good looking man. Okay. Like I'm going back through my little Gilded Age photos and biographies. I ain't never seen somebody look as good as Mr. Russell do. And that actor is Morgan Spector, played by Mr. Russell's played George Russell's played by Morgan Spector. Okay. Yeah, I ain't never seen somebody look that good. Okay, in the Gilded Age. Joe, if y'all look at pictures of JP Morgan, like true pictures of JP Morgan was ugly. Okay, John D. Rockefeller was ugly. Andrew Carnegie looked all right. He looked all right. Cornelius Vanderbilt, ugly. Okay. Now I know they was probably beautiful for that time, but we ain't in that time anymore. We in today's time. Okay. Hell, Abraham Lincoln was said to be attractive in his time. But in today, baby, if Abraham Lincoln walked in the bar, y'all ain't taking his number. No. And then don't sit here and try to act like y'all gonna give honest aid y'all's number. Quit lying. Okay. And so now after, Miss Jezebel Turner, that is Miss Russell, Mrs. Russell's maid, or Miss, is it mistress? No, it's not mistress. It's her main maid, her main body person. Right? She makes sure that Mrs. Russell is done up and everything like that. Anyway, okay, she's looking on and Mr. Russell thinking about how she gonna become the new Mrs. Russell, because that's where she believes that where she belongs. Okay, she don't belong to be with the peasants. Okay, she belongs to be living in the main house in the satin sheets. Okay, y'all keep your eye on Miss Jezebel Turner, baby. Okay. Uh, I put some other notes in here. We can move on. I do want to talk about this though, and that is we get another side of society, and that's Rhode Island, right? They take us to Rhode Island, and you see all these people in these bright dresses, and the men are in bright colored suits or tuxes or whatever you want to call them. and they all playing cricket, or I'm sorry, croquet, eating crumpets and sipping on tea, okay, or lemonade, okay, on this nice coastal country house in Rhode Island or Newport, okay. And so, excuse me, and so that's going to be another important scene, right? You got your society scene in New York, and then you have your country beachfront society scene, which is going to be taking place in Rhode Island. Okay, and there we get to meet Oscar Van Rhyme, that is Agnes's son. Okay, we get to meet the some of the Astor daughters. And again, this is why I say I like the show, because it weaves in real people and fake people, because the Astor family, excuse me, is a real family. Okay, those are real people. Have you ever heard of the Waldorf Astoria? Okay, that was created by the Astor family. Okay, as a matter of fact, here's a fun fact for you guys, because y'all know I'm a nerd. Um, that was actually Mrs. Astor, the one who is head of society in New York. Baby, that was actually her house, not the hotel. Her house sat on that lot, and then they tore the house down and built the hotel. But anyway, that was that was actually the site of Mrs. Astor's house at one point in time. Okay, there's a little fun fact for you guys. Um, moving right along. So Mrs. Van Ryn gives Peggy a job, okay, as a secretary, because Peggy has good penmanship, right? And Mrs. Van Ryn is terribly behind on her correspondence to people. But Mrs. Van Ryn, old iron ass, has a caveat, and that is you need to go tell your parents where you stand. Okay. And again, I can respect that, because baby, ain't nothing gonna happen to you. And now I got this colored lady, okay, at my house, and now everybody looking at me thinking I done something. Go tell your family where you staying at, baby, just in case things get too hot. They don't like their arrangement. They can come get you, because I ain't for that. I ain't for that. Okay. And again, this we get to meet Peggy's mother, played by the phenomenal Audra McDonald. Um, phenomenal actress. Phenomenal actress. Uh, I just want to know, and I need to watch another movie that she's in, but how this woman can talk through her teeth. Like, Peggy, I don't know why you got me here. Like, this is so unattractive. Now, you know your father loves you, girl. Okay, he was just doing something to make sure that you get what you need. Like, the fact how she announced and talked through her teeth, baby, is fascinating to me. Okay, how she's able to convey a full message through talking through her teeth is amazing to me. Um, but again, this is another episode, another I'm not another episode, another reason why I say that her family, Peggy's family, is well off. Um, you can tell by how the mother is dressed. They're at a social club in New York. Um, I believe it's Brooklyn. I believe it's Brooklyn, because that's where Peggy says her family is staying. And so again, we don't know what her family does, But we do know that her family is well off. And we also get introduced into, why we're not, I don't say we get introduced because we kind of get introduced to Peggy's family drama when she comes to stay with Mrs. Van Ryn when Marion arrives. But we kind of get a little more information when she meets her mother, right? And one thing that I would say before I move on to the charity event is Peggy's mother says something that still rings true today for anyone who has strife in their family. We are stuck until you decide we can move forward. Right? Now, we don't know what happened. We just know that there was something happened. And the daddy did something. And it must have been egregious. But again, though, that's a true statement, though, from Peggy's mom. And that rings, like I said, rings true today. We cannot move forward until you decide to move forward. And that's true. I'm gonna give y'all just a little tad bit of knowledge here. I don't know what family strife, drama, beef you guys have, right? It's none of my business. You have family strife and beef as well. And it's none of y'all's business. But until you decide, or until they decide to move forward, it's like everybody's frozen in time. Everybody is stuck in the beef, in the negativity. So, I hope, and I don't want to give any spoilers, but I do hope that we get to see some resolution there, right? I hope we get to see some resolution there. All right, so both Bertha goes to her first charity event, and again, this is another scene in society. And baby, this is where old versus new is on full display. And this is where if you don't fit in, you gonna have to you gotta get in where you fit in. If you don't naturally fit in, you're gonna have to force your way in. Right? Because the women who are in society of old New York, they really truly think that Bertha and her family are tacky. Why did you build this audacious house? Okay, your house looks like nothing else on the street. So you see how all of us are living. Why did you go build this big old French chateau looking home? To draw attention to yourself. And again, that's really the main gist of the charity scene. And then we get introduced to Mrs. Chamberlain. We don't know what Miss Chamberlain did, but we know that Miss Chamberlain is on the outside with society. But Miss Chamberlain must have some money, or otherwise they wouldn't let her ass in. Okay, which just goes to show you that if you got a check, we will put up with you. If you can sign a check with a whole lot of zeros, we'll put up with the foolishness. Okay, we will put up with you. And after the charity event, Marion and the young Mr. Russell, Larry, they meet, and this is the budding of a sensational love story that will play out throughout the season and throughout the series. And that's all I'm going to say on that. Bertha throws a party, or lack thereof, baby. She said, I got this big, beautiful house. Okay, baby, I know they want to see my house. And one thing, Bertha is full of herself, baby. Okay. And that is why old money people don't like new money people, because new money people act like they don't have anything. And what I mean by that, they act like they're not used to things. Okay. New money people want to show you we rich. Old money people says, baby, I may have $1 million in my bank, but you will never know. That is the difference between old and new money. Okay. And so Bertha want to show her new house. Okay. She want to show, because baby, I know they've been seeing it being built. And I know they've been talking about it. So they might as well come on in, okay, and see the grandness of this house. And baby, they ask how many people should they, prepare food for. Bertha says 200. Baby, how do you have 200 people? How do you have 200 people, a small wedding, to come to your house? But again, though, when your house is 30, 40,000 square feet, you can fit 200 people and still have room to roam. But 200 people. And baby, I didn't even count 10 that showed up. You make this huge feast, spend all George's money like that. Okay, now George gotta go out here and build another railroad to replace the money that you spent on this party and ain't nobody showed up to. Chaplains. But again, Bertha learns the hard way. All because you got money, that don't means you part of society. And she also understands what us black folks been known for a long time. All skin folk ain't your kin folk, okay? And we're gonna move on. We're gonna move on from there. Okay. And then finally, we get to meet the queen of society herself, Mrs. Astor. Oh, and I'm giving her a nickname that is Iron Lady. Okay. Because baby, that woman got nerves of steel. Okay. And one thing that going back, I'm gonna jump back before we talk about Mrs. Astor, because it kind of ties in. When George is in his office and he is smoking his cigar, okay, he asked a very profound question, and that is, why do we have to bow down to someone and we got more than them? We got more money than them. Our house is bigger than theirs. Why do we need to bow down to this lady? And to me, that is obviously because you want to fit in. It doesn't matter that the Russell family is a lot wealthier than the Astor family. It's the fact that they're not part of this thing. They're not part of this social scene. And baby Mrs. Astor, we're going to let it be known, she is the queen of society. And baby, you cannot get through unless you go through her. Okay? And then, again, Mrs. Astor is a real person. I touched on that already. And baby, she throws Bertha's invitation in the fireplace. Her daughter's like, oh, here's an invitation from the Russell family. Why didn't you go? It's for tonight. Child, please. That is essentially what Mrs. Astor said. Child, please. Excuse me. But another thing that's introduced was not, I won't say that's introduced, it's kind of enhanced. Again, because we're talking about old versus new money. But we're also talking about the old way of doing things and the new way of doing things. And the Russell family, again, represents the new way of doing things. Again, letting your wealth be shown. And again, it's not like, and let me just put it this way, it's not like the Astor family hid their wealth. Okay, if you actually do some research on the Astor family, like Mrs. Astor would let it, baby, she would greet you in her home in front of a portrait of herself. If that ain't screaming, I'm rich, bitch, I don't know what is. I'm introducing you to my home, and you got to see me twice. You're going to see me in real life, and then when you look up, you're going to see this grand portrait of me. I'm going to have all of my diamonds and my tiara on. Baby, they didn't hide their wealth at all. But it seems that the nouveau riche people, according to the old money people, just do it in a very grotesque way. And the last thing we find out before, the ending credits is that Oscar goes to his apartment, and baby, Oscar is a homosexual. Okay, he is a homosexual. Okay, and we're gonna figure out how that plays out in 1880 American society, because hell, it's 2025, and that's still a taboo thing. But I'm gonna leave that alone though, and we ain't going there. So that's it, y'all. That is the end of episode 1, season 1 of the Gilded Age. Okay, y'all will see me and my top hat again next week to review episode 2. Until next time, okay, get your money and stay filthy rich. I'll holler at y'all.